What if I told you that Pakistan's last two World Cups were haunted? Wait, let me just try and explain that better. Pakistan needed 3 runs to win from the last ball against Zimbabwe. Of course, they also needed that many from 3 balls. If they got 2 runs, they'd get a super over and a second chance at winning a game they had somehow been handing to Zimbabwe. And to get there, Zimbabwe gifted them one thing: this small fumble. For a moment, as this ball hits the ground, Pakistan was still a big chance of winning this World Cup. And this made me think about another moment from the last World Cup. In this one, Australia are 5 wickets down, they lose Maxwell the ball before, and they need 81 from 46. The game is very near over when Marcus Stoinis plays this swipe across the line. It is not a good shot, and he doesn't get a lot on it. And he's also hit it directly to where there is a fielder on the rope. Well, not quite on the rope. This ball goes a metre over the head of a player I'm pretty sure is Asif Ali. Of all the catches that Asif Ali has missed, this is not the one that people usually remember. It's the one that led to this moment. The Stoinis one is far less famous, but look at where the fielder is. Now if we go a little bit ahead, we can see where the ball lands. So if he was on the rope, this is a pretty easy catch, and instead it goes for 6. And look, he may have been off the rope for a number of reasons, but what happens next? Australia will hit 5 more 6s after this. And those 81 runs they need in 46 balls, they'll get them in only 41. And if you don't immediately remember this game, it was the World Cup semi-final of last year. Pakistan were unbeaten when Australia needed 81 from 46, and the ball landed just a few feet over the rope. At that moment, they were probably favourites to win the entire tournament. And it is as this ball lands that the entire thing has completely fallen apart for Pakistan. And where did it fall from? Well, for the 2 years before this, they had the best win-loss record in T20 internationals. They were going 21-8. That is an outstanding run for any team. But if you cherry pick it, you can actually find a better slot here. See where I've put the heart? That is the period from 2016 until 2018 where they were simply amazing. Sadly for them, there were no World Cups in this period. My favourite part though is the back half. In late 2017 to 2018, they played 23 matches and they lost 2 of them. Some of those games were against a World 11 that really should have had T20I status, but also Sri Lanka, West Indies, Zimbabwe, Australia and New Zealand. In this run, not only were Pakistan the best team, but they were also the best death bowling team. They were going at under 8.5 runs and over in this period. That's really low, especially to do it for that long. Now this is where it starts to get interesting, because the Stoinis moment is the one I mention a lot. But what happens after that is Pakistan's death bowlers get hit. So let's fast forward a little to the India match they just lost. Again, a team was in a position and it was basically impossible, and yet somehow India came back from the dead. And a lot of death boundaries is what did it. And so I checked. Pakistan are still one of the best death bowling teams in the world. They aren't as dominant as before, but they've been doing great. And so that is a part of Pakistan's cricket that should have held up, and in 2 must-win matches, it has not. But it's not the only thing. I'm going to take a slight detour here and talk about this as if you're a town planner thinking about a freeway. You want to build a road through the center of town to help traffic flow. But if everyone travels on that, it will cause its own problems. So you want enough people to continue to use the old roads. The same thing can sometimes happen in sport. In fact, basketball is a perfect one if one player uses the ball too much. When Wilt Chamberlain used to score 50 points a game, or really anything over 35, his teams didn't have a lot of success. When teams started using other players, or even getting him to pass the ball more, he might have been personally responsible for fewer points, but his team wins start to go up. You can also see something here called win shares, which is an advanced metric in basketball. It gives you a good idea of how handy a player is. You can see whether he scored heaps or passed more, his impact was about the same, but his teams were better. The problem was for those early teams is that Wilt Chamberlain was so damn good. He was way taller than anyone else. He was really fast, incredibly strong, and brilliantly skillful. At that point, he was the best offensive player in NBA history. And why would you take the ball out of his hands? But eventually they did, and they won more. The point is, whether it be traffic, basketball, or batting in T20, you want to know your main options are incredibly solid, but that everything else is also working well. basically you want a good spread. Mohammad Rizwan and Babar Azam have been absolutely extraordinary openers in terms of total runs made. Their consistency has been freaky. To have one opener like this would be great. To have two, it's almost impossible to believe they're both around at the same time. And in terms of most runs in partnership, they have more than 1,000 runs more than any other openers in the 2-year period running into this World Cup. They are absolutely insane. And I'm not even going to put names or numbers here. Just look at the difference from first to second. And they average 47 runs for their opening stand. These are absolutely stupid numbers. In the last 2 years, their openers have made 50% of the runs, and no other team in this tournament is over 40%. The average in T20 cricket usually hovers around 35 or 36%. And here is the big daddy one. Rizwan and Azam are already the all-time leading T20 international opening partnership, despite only getting their band together back in 2021. This one actually seems made up, and I did double and triple check it, just to be sure. It's true. So losing them for basically no runs is the worst nightmare for Pakistan. Having great openers in T20 can actually cause a problem when they bat this well for so long, because of course they're going to fail at least one time in a tournament of this length. Or 4 times. Because after they have played 4 games, you see the only opening partnership on a similar level is Namibia. Pakistan turned up with the most consistent and all-encompassing opening partnership in the history of T20 international cricket, and it never got started. And the worst thing about this is, I'm not actually sure what you should do about it. Split them up? Rest them more? Retire them once they hit 25 like in junior cricket? And why does all this matter? Because we know the middle isn't their strength. And against Zimbabwe, all they had to do was chase 130 runs. Babar and Rizwan's opening partnership might average 47, but they also average 50 and 47 each. So if they had combined to make a third of their career averages, Pakistan would probably easily have won this game. But there is another part of this. In terms of World Cups, Pakistan had won 5 straight games and then lost 3 on the bounce: Australia, India, and then Zimbabwe. T20 teams don't usually dominate for huge long stretches. It just happened to be that this happened at the wrong time for Pakistan. But the more interesting thing was that it occurred with their strongest suits, batting at the top and bowling at the death. But also their composure fell apart. In the Australian game, it wasn't as if they were really sure what their plan was after that point. Losing from that position can happen. Losing with an over to spare is almost incomprehensible. The India game hardly needs to be relitigated. But India needed 16 runs from that final over, and the idea was that a man who bowled spin would deliver seam up. And it is worth mentioning that Mohammad Nawaz had been a medium pacer once, back when he was 14, and then he changed when he was 15 to spin. And in that over of 16 runs, there were 6 extras. And that's mostly because one delivery was called a no ball for high. And I think it's fair to call this 50-50. That doesn't mean it's a bad call. It means that it's right on the waistline. And also, Virat is buckled and that ball has a little bit further to travel. It could have easily gone Pakistan's way, as an earlier run out of Akshar Patel had. But that wasn't going to happen, because Mohammad Nawaz's World Cup is doomed. Like in one game, he was so spooked, he gave himself out. Oh, this was something very special. Tabraiz Shamsi hits him on the pad and he is given out LBW. But he also runs. No one knows why, because it's not his call. But while he's running, he also stares at the umpire. Because of all this, he is run out. So he leaves the field, probably thinking that the run out stands. But it doesn't, because the ball was dead once he was struck on the pad and the umpire thought he was out LBW. So he couldn't be run out. Now, had he stood around and asked any questions at all, he would have found this out. Instead, he left the field without reviewing his LBW. Had he stayed, he would have been given not out, because he hit the absolute arse off the ball. But let's get back to him in the Zimbabwe game. Pakistan needed 43 from 39 with 7 wickets in hand. Quite an effort to lose from here. They had a mini collapse, but they still had Nawaz at the crease. So after making him return to his childhood in the previous game, this time he just has to bat. Nawaz is on 2 when Shah Masood is out to this stumping. As an aside, this is a fantastic piece of work, and it shows Regis Chakava's incredible skill. He's a high quality keeper. But if you want more information on that, then here he is popping up in a video on Tim Payne with some stats on how good his keeping has been. After the stumping, there are 2 overs of Mohammad Wasim swinging his bat around. His composure replicates what we saw from their death bowlers in the other matches. He is listed as an all-rounder, but he's a number 8, who may one day develop into something with a bat. So far, his professional wickets total is not that far off his total T20 runs, so the better option for him would have been to get his partner back on strike. And Mohammad Nawaz can bat. He averages over 35 in first-class cricket. And while he's not some incredible T20 enforcer, he can certainly manipulate the strike and get a couple of boundaries. So him not facing is a huge problem. Finally, he gets back on just as Zimbabwe are in charge, and he smashes a 6. And now they need 12 from 8, and at the start of the next over, that is 11 from 6. This is where Brad Evans is involved. His father was a quality player for Zimbabwe a couple of decades back, but he's new to this team. How new, I hope you are asking? Well, his international career started this year, in August. So the man with 81 days of international experience got hit for 3 first ball, then he overpitched a slow one that he should have banged into the wicket for a boundary. Wasim gets a single, and Nawaz now needs 3 runs in 3 balls. The first one he misses, and the second one is this. Evans is probably a little bit full here, but Nawaz sort of cramps himself up, and the extra bounce gets him to slice it badly, and the ball limps to mid-off. That means that Shaheen Afridi has to come in and win this game. And he had hit the ball pretty well against India, and so at least people knew he could strike. But this is what actually happened. Wasim takes a huge advantage at the bowling end, but is not run out. Evans delivers a good Yorker and then falls over. Shaheen strikes the ball pretty well back past the bowler. Sikandar Raza is at long on, but a short long on, if that makes sense. He comes around to the ball really quick, throws to Shaheen's end, and Regis Chakabva fumbles the ball. Let's stop here. Pakistan's openers have failed in this tournament. Pakistan's death bowling has let them down in too many key moments, and their composure has looked non-existent at times. But if this man was here, and not here, or the umpire thought this ball was an inch lower, and this fumble went anywhere else other than the feet of the keeper, Pakistan might have won some of these matches. Because Pakistan might have been the best team coming into that last World Cup. And they might have been the best team in that tournament as well. And again, hump South Africa in this tournament, but also lose 3 straight matches. The best team doesn't always win. And no one has ever shown that better than this cursed Pakistan side. Asif Ali's ghost catch, Virat Kohli's come back from the dead, and Zimbabwe's shock win. Whether Pakistan is the best side or not really doesn't matter. But that their fate was cemented when one of the best keepers in the world fumbled a ball, and luckily enough for him, it landed right under his feet. Pakistan's last 2 World Cups have been cursed.